Hello everybody and welcome to a chat from the engineering desk. Today we're going to be talking about this next kit which I've assembled and got ready to talk to you about. It is a little automatic wiper kit. So they supply you with the mounting plate. There's an LED, but there's a problem with that which we'll get to. The gears for the gearbox, the motor that drives it, the screws, as well as some electronic components for the sensing. So starting off, you fit the motor with the worm gear. Then you assemble the gearbox and fit it in front of the motor with the worm engaged onto that crown wheel, which it engages for the next wheel, which is the wheel which then drives the final reduction for the crank, which is over here. That wheel over there engages with this wheel, which drives the crank. I mounted that at the end, so it made the job easier. So next up, there's a little bit of mechanical assembly to do, which is assembling some rod ends or clevises onto pins and assembling the whole wiper assembly. So what you do is you assemble this assembly and then you check the motion by working it by hand. You then install it onto the base plate, and you then fit the standoffs and the solderless board for the electronics. And the electronics you then wire up like this, and here's a little circuit for it. Now strangely what they've done is they've fitted the LED across the motor, but there's no current limiting resistor, which is not good for the LED. So in this case it caused the LED to fail. So I don't have the LED on mine, as it's now gone short circuit. So how this works is positive is present on the sensor over here, and when it becomes wet, current flows through that transistor, which then applies current to that transistor base, which puts that current transistor into conduction, and the motor then spins. So it's now got current flowing through it, and that's pretty much it electrically. So let's put this aside. So here we go. We've got the sensor, which are two sets of tracks. It's double-sided. This is what the bottom of the plate looks like. You assemble it with machine screws and nuts. They're 2mm. Use a provider screwdriver. But hard to see. There's the motor. There's the gearbox. The final drive to the crank, which has got the connecting rod connected to the first wiper arm, which is connected to the second one with a further connecting rod and these rod ends. The pivot point is over here, and over here you got that resistor to ground. You've got your signal to the Yeah, there's the brown wire. That's the signal from the sense side of the sensor to that transistor, which has got positive on it. On the collector, that being the base, the emitter is connected to the base of this transistor, which then, that being the negative, go to the motor. That's the collector, so that's a negative, that's the emitter. So emitter, collector, base. So when that transistor is put into conduction, the current flow through the on-off switch to here, to the motor. From the motor it's to the collector, the emitter back to the battery. So when that transistor is in conduction, the wipers work. So what you do, you turn that on. It's do a bit of probing around, show you what's going on. Now we said that's negative from the battery, so 3 volts, so I've turned it on, so 3 volts is present here, which means 3 volts is present on that one side of the plate. On the other side of the plate there's 0 volts. On the motor there's also 3 volts present. So I'm measuring across the emitter and collector of the transistor, which is currently not in conduction. And likewise the base of this transistor has got no voltage on it. So what I'm going to do is wet my finger and I'm going to touch that, and we'll see what happens. There we go, we have 1.5 volts, and there's quite a bit of gain in the circuit. So if I wet it, there we go. So the conduction of electricity through my finger, the damp finger, turns it on. Likewise, when you measure here, you will see that transistor is turned on. Wipe that dry, it goes up again. So getting back to the mechanics of this thing, let's watch it operate. Here you can see the crank going around, and it pulls and pushes on this wiper arm. It's connected to that wiper arm. That's how your wipers work. Now I've wet this now, they're dried out, and now it's off, so nothing happens. So no current flows through this circuit as long as there's no open resistance or no resistance through the sensor over here. So you could do other things with this. You could make a water alarm or a flood sensor or something like that out of it, using this type of sensor circuit. But the purpose of this demonstration is some mechanical components. You've got a gearbox connected to a crank, which converts rotating motion into linear motion to and fro. And then you've got a sensor connected to an amplifier circuit, which is then connected to a drive circuit for your motor. And that's the long and the short of this little kit. I spent, I'd say, about an hour and a half building it, and cost wise we're looking at about $100, looking at $10 for this kit. It worked as per the instructions, apart from the issue with the LED across the motor, which should have had a current limiting resistor, and it got unhappy and failed. Besides that, a nice little kit. So I hope you enjoyed this talk. I hope you've learned something from it. I hope it inspires you and motivates you to build your own. Have an awesome day further. I'll see you for the next one. Cheers.